Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new season of Channel 71 News Debrief. We are back in session now that the City Council is back in session to talk about the City Council meetings that have just occurred, um, and anything Waltham politics related, as well as some cultural stuff as well. Um, and so with us today is our usual Jamie Gerkelis
Hi, everyone.
and Tom Benavides.
Hello.
So with our first show back, we're going to talk about a few things. We're going to talk about the elephant in the room of our YouTube channel being break taken down. We're talking about that for a second. We'll talk about the election that just happened. We'll look a little bit about the data and the analysis of that. We're going to have two people on from that election, Colleen Bradley-MacArthur and Barbara Ayala on the show, talk about their experience. Then we're going to go into the first city council meeting, maybe talk a little bit about Eversource and the MWRA as well. So, big elephant in the room. Our YouTube channel got shut down after complaints from the local access TV station, WCAC, MAC TV. We put out a statement, and Jamie actually had a nice conversation with our friends at the Justice, the Brandeis newspaper. So they're going to release an article. So I don't really have too much else to say about the matter, except it's we talk a lot about this on the show, but the optics of it are just like mind blowing. It's just mind blowing. For them to shut down our YouTube channel, um, like days before the preliminary, when the city owns or at least pays for like some of local access is just like mind blowing to me. And of course, they're completely biased journalism towards the mayor, especially in the last 4 or 5 years. It's just mind blowing. The optics are just mind blowing. And there have been a lot of talk online, people that understand copyright and YouTube better than I do, talking about how YouTube is just a bad place for that kind of thing. So, of course, local access doesn't share all of the blame, but it's just crazy. And a lot of the opponents, and I think local access as well, are going to say, "Oh, well, they were invited to do the show at local access, and so why didn't they just do that? It would have been safer there." But it doesn't make any sense to me. That doesn't make any sense to me at all because well, there is no difference between doing the show at our homes and doing the show at on Main Street where local access tapes. Like if that's the only difference in location, then why not just let us use your clips? Like which we believe is fair use, which I think is pretty cut and dry actually. Um, but it's just like there's no difference. Like we record the show over there, we record the show over here. Like why not just use the clips? Like that's just like putting us through extra loops and extra uh bureaucracy, and it's just there's no difference, and so that doesn't hold any weight to us at all. And so I just believe that WCAC doesn't believe in free speech, and that's a shame. That's a shame, especially during this election season.
I think one thing I wanted to mention is sort of like the entire reason we had started this channel was to record things which were not being recorded by WCAC, and it's from where we had started, they weren't even recording meetings in the Hoover Room, and I mean, at least from what with the work that we were doing, showing up with a camera and recording the meetings, they felt obligated to at least start recording those meetings, and I
Mm.
think that that was at least one good outcome of this. And Um, there's other examples of like local cable access stations. Like one that I like to point to is the one that like, is from the town that I grew up in Wakefield, which has its own YouTube channel and everything like that. And we can throw the link in here, like WCAT TV or on YouTube, WCAT Wakefield. Um, but like they have their own YouTube channel, and it's like a lot of the same type of content that you'd see on WCAT TV, except just on a slightly different, like on that platform. So um, also related to the having us on WCAT, uh, the just from like their mission statement, the their entire orientation towards promoting use of cable access and informing people who use cable access, and so it makes sense that their response to any criticism is to have us use their cable access platform. And it seems wild to have one state-funded media platform for a city and no other alternatives.
Yeah, monopoly, totally. And yeah, so we got some of the public meetings are backed up, but there's definitely some live recordings that are just lost forever, if I think that's correct. Um, and so, yeah, I mean, that's just municipal history, municipal recordings,
In
lessons.
per- in particular, the master plan committee meetings, we were the ones recording basically all of those. So I mean, aside from the notes that we took on those recordings, those are no
No,
longer
we have
accessible.
those. We back those
We have
up.
those?
Yeah,
Oh, good.
we
Yeah.
do
Awesome.
have a backup of the master plan meeting, which is
Awesome.
important because, as was said, we were the only ones who were recording the master plan meetings. That is the only like documentation of what all was said at the master plan meetings,
Mhm.
which is especially important if city council ever does get around to like hiring a consultant to like draft a master plan based on master plan input. Uh, like we do still have those only existing copies of the master plan meetings, and presumably we will re-upload them at
Yeah, we
some.
should upload those.
Yeah, and we only have them because we decided to put them somewhere else. We were using them for a different project, and so we recorded them somewhere else. Thank God, because then YouTube took them all down. And so, and to the city's credit, they recorded two of them, but we recorded all of them. And so, yeah, so definitely there's this history lost, and that's on WCAC. For someone that believes in recording meetings, they sure like deleting meetings from the face of the earth.
Just again from
Yeah.
their mission statement, the third bullet point is to keep viewers of the public service access channels on the cable television system in Waltham, Massachusetts, aware of current city events. They do not
They're
feel obligated beyond that to
they're
anyone else.
they're they keep a year's worth of city council meetings. It's not even very long.
You know,
So yeah, we're gonna continue doing what we're doing. We're gonna rebuild, re-upload a lot of the stuff that was lost. Um, and yeah, we're not gonna stop doing this until there's some more alternative sources of news in Waltham. Totally. Okay, moving on. Waltham election and analysis. So the preliminary was on Tuesday. Um, I'm going to throw up some data. Uh, so where do I begin with this? So let's just go down. Let's just go down. Let's start there. Let's just go down and talk about everything. Um, Jeanette had a very strong showing 60% of the vote. Jonathan Paz, 36%. Our friend Ayala got knocked out of Ward 3 with only 17% of the vote, which was disappointing. And Councilor at Large, top three are Tom, Randy, and Kathleen. Then Colleen, Paul Brasco, Carlos Vidal. Those are the top six. So, and if this was the real election, that would be it. Everybody else is gone. And then it goes Patrick, Stephen Duffy, Tim King, Emma Zumas, Emily Speria, George Darcy, and Susan Rosenfelder. Susan Rosenfelder was at the bottom. Only one person was getting eliminated. So Susan Rosenfelder, unfortunately, who was a fan of the show, gets eliminated. Hopefully you stay engaged. Hopefully you continue to contribute to Waltham politics. And so where do we start here? Our friend Ayala, who we're going to have on the show a little bit later, what can you say? 17%. It's really not that far away from Paul Tracy. Yeah, it's 30, 40, 40 something votes. That was a totally winnable margin. She should be very proud. She ran on a unapologetically left campaign in what I like to say is the most conservative ward in Waltham. She has a lot to be proud of. I hope she continues doing things in Waltham. I think it's a great first showing, especially for Ward 3. I think if she decided to run at large, she would do a lot better. And I think if she were decided to run in Ward 3, I think she would do even better in 2 years, especially if she just does a little constituent feedback between now and then. Bill Hanley, almost undoubtedly, is going to become the Ward 3 city councilor, unless all Ayala voters are just Paul Tracy voters, but I don't feel like they are. Bill Hanley is almost undoubtedly going to become the Ward 3 city councilor. Um, I I don't think there's anything to debate there. So in the mayoral race, unfortunately, Jonathan Paz came up short with 36% of the vote. He's down by 1,100 in the preliminary. Of course, Verno's turnout was 15%, which is awful. I would guess probably about 25 on the high end is going to vote in the general. If I were to guess, I'd probably say like 22%. And so there are going to be many, many more people voting. And so nothing is impossible. Nothing is impossible. Absolutely, Jonathan Paz could win this race. He could just have to work really, really hard. And if I had to guess, I would guess about like 12, 13, maybe 14,000 doors he'd have to knock on to stand a chance, which is about 300 doors every single day from now until November. So totally possible. It is unlikely. It is unlikely, and it is way more likely that Jeanette McCarthy is going to be mayor again, and she will go for 24 years. And so, if I was a betting man, I would bet that Jeanette McCarthy is going to become mayor. But that's just me being cynical, and I would like to reiterate: Jonathan Paz totally has a shot if he works really, really goddamn hard, and if you help him do it. So there's that. Okay, and now on to at large. Tom Stanley won. I'm confused by that. I don't really understand. I don't understand. I just never understand how that guy's so popular in Waltham. But of course, a very Waltham name. His interns get back to people, I guess. And I think that's actually Tom Stanley responding. So I don't know. Maybe that's why. Tom Stanley, ran Leblanc, Kathleen, top three. When I made my predictions, I guessed those top three in just in a different order. They're all very Waltham people. I'm surprised Kathleen is running again. I'm going to guess again that this is going to be the last time she's done this. I think this will be her 42nd year in Waltham City Council, if I recall correctly. And then you've got Colleen, and we're going to talk to her in a minute. But Colleen looking great. I think, these numbers, especially where it gets to where the cutoff is, these are all numbers that can change drastically. There's 200 votes when, hundreds and hundreds more people are going to be voting. All of these numbers at this level are going to look different. I would be surprised if Tom wasn't the top of the list anymore, but around the bottom where Carlos Vidal is, those are all going to those are going to change. And so pretty much everyone has a shot. Emma Zumas, our friend of the show, I think she's totally within a margin of victory. I think she's going to have to work really hard, but I think totally within the margin of victory. I think that's totally winnable. Emily, friend of our show, love Emily, gonna have to work even harder. Again, not unwinnable, pretty unlikely. But we wish her the best of luck. Love Emily. So all of these numbers are going to change, and it's not set in stone. But if we were just we're basing this conversation on the numbers here alone, Colleen looking awesome, doing better than she did 2 years ago, which is what I was a little concerned about, because she stuck her neck out there a couple of times with like voting against the budget and just being in like a few minority votes that people didn't really like. And if you spend all your time on the internet just fucking reading comments, you'd think that Colleen is doing poorly, but no, she's doing very well, and so I'm very excited for her. I bet it's friggin' sweet to beat Brasco again. I bet it's tastes even sweeter to beat Carlos and Patrick O'Brien, who's on the city council. If we were judged by these numbers alone, he would not be on the city council anymore, which has happened before, I think twice, and so. He's in trouble. Carlos is in trouble. Paul Brasco, although he's not on the city council right now, is in trouble. And even Colleen. I wouldn't say that she's totally safe, but I know Colleen's going to work really hard because she does that very well. And so these are all very interesting. The most interesting thing, I don't know. Do you guys want to talk about anything that I just said before I move on to George?
Yeah, it wasn't particularly surprising to see Tom Stanley towards the top along with Randy and Kathleen. And honestly, like given the turnout, this kind of seems like it represents like what the floor is for their support. Like I can't imagine them like going much below that in terms of like this is like their core supporters coming out to vote. And
Totally.
and I think that that does give some sort of hope for the people that are like more progressive towards towards the bottom, that with better turnout they might perform better, especially if they can get their message out better. So
Totally. Yeah. I mean,
because
a
people
higher
are very
turnout. Yeah.
because people are very, I wouldn't say like, yeah, based on 15% turnout, like super motivated to come out, but like there were people doing standouts and stuff, and lots of, and in terms of like online like energy, people are definitely ready to go for that, at least on the people that are going to be voting for the establishment. So,
Totally, yeah. A larger turnout is better for non-incumbents. That's just true across the board. And Waltham is doing very badly in turnout, and so it's just helping incumbents. And I see another dismal thing in November. Quote me as 22.5 is my final guess. Um, and of course, the most interesting thing is George Darcy, and I'm going to talk about this for a minute. If you listen to the show, I've said many times that George going from Ward 3 to at large was a good idea because George did very well in Ward 3, which is a historically a very conservative ward. George Darcy, not really historically conservative. And so I thought, oh, well, he's born and raised in Waltham, he's very involved in Waltham. He's got a great resume. He's going to be great at large, where there are more liberal folk. I think he's walk right in. I thought he was jeopardizing Colleen's seat. I was 100% sure he was going to have no trouble at all. He's at the bottom of the list. George Darcy will not win unless there's something crazy going on where he works his ass off. George Darcy is not going to be city council, and that's crazy. That's crazy. He's definitely not a perfect person, very flawed human being, and done shitty things on the council, done shitty things as a person. But I'm just very surprised. Does everyone know about this DUI situation? Like, is that the only reason why he's at the bottom of this list now? I have no idea. I still think it was a better idea than running in Ward 3, where he would have got stomped, and it would have been a very nasty campaign against him. At least now he can lose without his face being plastered on telephone poles talking about that DUI. But I'm very shocked, very, very, very shocked, and I was 100% completely wrong. That was my guesses there. Continuing with anecdotes, I thought Tim King would do better, and it goes to show that lawn signs don't really vote in Waltham. There's often that conception of this idea that if you have a bunch of lawn signs, then you're very popular. But the most effective means of voter engagement is knocking on doors. And you can think that you and your pals like somebody, so you can put a sign on your lawn that it's going to make a difference. It can be debated on forever, the legitimacy of signs. But I'm in the camp that lawn signs do not vote. You saw it with Chuck Smirlis in Ward 6. You saw that in Ward 7 against Paul. I don't even remember his opponent before. What killed him in law signs, killed him in standouts. Doesn't really matter. Whoever works the hardest is usually gonna do well. I wouldn't say win, but they're going to do well. And so Tim King, but again, the margin is so small that Tim King, if he goes and canvasses, totally possible he could win. Totally. Okay. Any other thoughts about the election? We have November 7th is the general election. I'm going to throw up really quick this hilarious thing that someone found. Randy Leblanc is using old lawn signs clearly because I don't know how many there are. I'm going to say several. It might be many, but several of his lawn signs say vote November 2nd, and I'll throw that up here. And I think that's absolutely hilarious, and I'm going to celebrate November 2nd as the day to vote for Randy LeBlanc. Okay, now we're gonna invite on a couple of people from the preliminary election that just occurred. One is Colleen Bradley-MacArthur, who's been on the council for a few years now, friend of the show, and really holding up a lot of the progressive movement in the city council. And as well, while Colleen did very well, one of the people that did not do as well, Barbara Ayala in Ward 3, who, again, should be very proud of the race she ran for running very outspokenly as herself in a ward that maybe the voters, the people that come out to vote, maybe wanted to see something else. And so we're very excited to have these two people on. So, a counselor, if you're a fan of the show, needs no introduction, Colleen Bradley-MacArthur. So, thank you for coming on. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you for having me, Chris.
Wonderful. You know, if you're listening to the show, you know what the preliminary numbers look like. But for Colleen, for you, it looks pretty good. Obviously, all those numbers can change in November. Anything can happen. But based solely on those numbers, it suggests that you're doing better now than you were doing 2 years ago. So you've just been increasing. You know, can you describe that feeling, all your hard work?
Yeah, thank you, Chris. I mean, you are part of that hard work, and everyone is part of that hard work, because this is something that has been building for 5 or 6 years now. Not just my success currently, but the success of many of the counselors and candidates that have come before me, right? We've been planting these seeds and doing this work well before 2023. And I think that's what's most satisfying about the position I'm in now, is I feel as though, you know, we have really ignited a level of engagement in local politics that probably matches a lot of your enthusiasm and my enthusiasm for local politics. And that's really cool to see. I also think that it shows when you engage with people in your community, and you know, when you engage, when you listen, when you are out and about in your community, and I mean the whole community, right? Because I look at some of past candidates and past incumbents, you know, and current incumbents, that there's a tendency to go with what you know, be with who you know. And if you don't go out and engage with every different group in the city, then you're not going to know what's going on. And you're not going to be accessible to people. So
Totally. Yeah, this actually wasn't on my list of questions, but yeah, the way you're talking, I mean, I love talking about this kind of stuff. Like, why do you think that is happening? Why do you think all this engagement is happening? Is it just the work that, you know, people like you, people like me that are doing? Because you were part of the cohort of people like myself that got very engaged in around 2017, 2018 with Progressive Waltham. And it was very much a countrywide thing. Like, you saw more people running for office than ever before. But the thing is, in 2023, you see more people running in Waltham than ever in history. And that's not a country trend anymore. That's not, you know, there's still more people running than usual, but we hit the all-time in 2023. And most people hit the all-time in around 2017, 2020. So why are more people running for office in Waltham than ever before in its history now, in a time like now? Can you speculate on why?
I think that's a good question. And I think that one possible answer is how much this city has changed and what your opinion on that change is, or those changes are. Because I know I'll speak for myself, someone who's been here 14 years, I feel as though, you know, when I ran and the people that are running, you know, sort of my progressive slash sort of democratic progressive contemporaries want to capitalize and keep going on the potential that's been realized, and keep, you know, like our slogan is moving Waltham forward. And I, when I'm on the doors, I hear the same thing. People say, "Oh, we love this city. It has so much potential." And I say, yes, I've seen that for the last 14 years. And so I think it's also a reaction and a frustration that not enough progress has been made. You know, we are 10 miles outside of Boston. We are an urban suburb of Boston, you know, and I know some of the people who've been here their whole lives or generations don't like that. It's just the reality that we live in, right? So we have something in common where we all love Waltham. We love this city. I think a lot of the candidates that are stepping up are split in sort of their reaction to how much progress Waltham has made. If they haven't made enough progress, they don't like the progress that's happening. And, it's tough, right? I look at my hometown of Beverly, and they're going through a development boom right around their MBTA station. And I was there a couple of weekends ago visiting my cousin, and she lived in one of the apartments that was newly built, a 3-story apartment building. And I was so excited to see that, because to me, that means progress, right? My cousin has a place to live. It's right near the commuter rail. She can walk to the commuter rail. And, she's in her late 20s, early 30s. And so that could be a parallel for Waltham, right? We have that demographic because we have 2 universities in this city that could be staying around, but they don't have a place to live. And that's forget, the spectrum of challenges with affordable housing, anywhere from, chronically unhoused all the way to seniors, right? We know that. We know the spectrum. I just feel like I want to be on the right side of progress here, and make this the best city and most attractive city to live that it can be.
Of course, yeah. I mean, that's just a tough conversation to have with some people. How do you know, what is the talking point that's going to make people okay with, the character of the city they grew up in looking a little differently than what they remember? That's just a hard conversation to have. And so that kind of leads me to my next one. You kind of touched on it, because going into the preliminary, I was very worried about you. With George coming in, I thought Tim King was going to do much better than he was. With Paul Brasco coming back in, I was worried. Like, damn, like Colleen might be in trouble. Like Colleen's spot at the bottom is like no longer just like safe. It's going to be tough to do. But you did way better than I thought. I think way better than a lot of people thought. But if you spend all your time on the internet, then I would think that people wouldn't be very happy with what you've been doing. But clearly that's wrong. Clearly that's wrong. Clearly people are very pleased with what you've been up to. So you can talk like what has that conversation been on the doors for you? How have people's receptions been? How have those conversations been?
Yeah, the conversations on the doors have been even more engaging than the last few years. And it's so encouraging. And, when I'm talking to people, I'm not a career politician, so I don't talk like one when I'm talking to people. I just talk like a normal human being. And by imparting the knowledge that I have about what city council life is like, what the job is like, because I've had a lot of people ask me, what does a city councilor really do? Or what does at large mean? And, I think we make a lot of assumptions sometimes that, well, people must know, they must know what it means and what we do. And through that dialogue of people asking questions and I'm able to give a response, that's where the magic happens, right? That's where they say, I've been wondering about that. I've lived in the city for 5 years. I hear that all the time on the doors. They'll say, oh, well, that intersection down there, I've lived here for 5 years now. What's going on with that? What is, what can you do about that? Or what do, what's the tenor of politics like here in Waltham, local politics? And I never heard those questions in 2017, 2019, 21. I think in 21, I've said this before, that people were just excited to see someone else at their door that wasn't their immediate family, because we'd all been in lockdown and cooped up. But this is like another level of, I've been here for a while. I'm wondering what's going on. And thank you for telling me, your experience. And I can only speak from my experience. I can't, guess or I'm not gonna like gossip about what's in someone else's head or heart. I can just speak from my experience, and I love doing that, and I think that's resonating.
Awesome. So what's next for the campaign? Do you want to make any plugs for canvases, volunteer stuff, any events coming up?
Oh yeah, we this past weekend, after the primary, I've had at least a half a dozen people say to me on the doors, I voted for you, I voted for Jonathan, I voted for Emma. We want new people on the city council. What can we do to help you be successful? That question has literally been asked a half dozen times.
Great.
And my answer to them is knock on doors with us, come out, meet your neighbors, knock on doors with us, help us make phone calls, write letters. I mean, we need it all, because what it shows is it shows the rest of the electorate that may be kind of like, oh, I don't know how this is all going to shake out. I want to, bet on a winner, or I want to, align myself with someone who's going to win. This is a group effort, so we need everybody. And I trained 2 new volunteers that had never knocked on doors before the night of Get Out the Vote. And it's pretty intense, right? We're running from door to door, knocking on people's door, making sure they voted. Hey, chop, chop, it's 7 o'clock. You got an hour, go vote. We'd like to do that training before that time.
Yeah.
We don't want to throw people into that kind of environment. And when we've trained people throughout the campaign, that we're driving by a place to go knock on doors, and they'll go, oh, I know someone that lives over there. Oh, and so talk to your neighbors. That would be my second thing. If you don't feel comfortable talking to people door to door, which is what we need the most help on, talk to your neighbors, talk to your friends that live in other parts of the city. And I think that the more we have these conversations amongst our friends, it's pretty taboo sometimes. People are like, oh, I don't want to talk politics. I don't really like getting into politics. It's like, it's here. It's part of our daily lives, and it should be, because it impacts our daily lives. So that'd be my message.
Good. Hope people do get involved. This is, the bottom of the hour already. People are feeling the heat for November right now. So last question, and I asked all this as well, is what advice would you give someone who's thinking about running for office 2 years from now? What do you want them to know?
Yeah, I want them to know that it is possible. I mean, you look at someone like Emma Zumas, the numbers that she got on the doors, in the primary, from knocking on doors. She topped some of these wards and precincts in places where, these are household names in Waltham, or generationally known names in Waltham. So that's a huge feat. And what it speaks to is her involvement in the community. So I would say, if you're thinking about running, I mean, even look at Barbara's numbers. I just did Barbara's numbers the other day, and how far off she was from, it was not very far off at all, and I think people need to understand that too, right? People need to understand that, this is sometimes like 30 votes. So when you say, oh, my vote doesn't matter, my vote doesn't count, or I'm going to sit this one out, I heard that a couple times campaigning. Oh, I'm just going to sit this one out. Or I heard after, oh, I'm just going to sit this one out. I sat this one out, because it didn't matter. It's just the primary. I'm like, whoa, I'm going to stop you right there. It does matter. If you're thinking about running, get involved. Emma's part of the cycling group, because that's something she's passionate about. I got involved with the land trust and Hardy Pond stewards, because it's right down the street from my house, and I care about that place within the city. And I've told people that I meet on the doors, they say, oh, I've been here like 6 months. I say, welcome to Waltham. Here's a list of organizations you can get involved with right here in the city.
That's wonderful. So again, thank you for coming on. Congratulations again on your great showing in the preliminary. I want to reiterate, those numbers can change, they can look different. So if you want Colleen to win, if you want, these opinions to move forward in the city council, and you have to get involved. You don't have to knock on doors, which is the most effective way to help people. But reaching out, doing phone calls, talking to your neighbors, just these kinds of things move forward with your participation. So thank you, Colleen. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for the time.
Thank you.
And now on to our second guest of the night. So welcome, Ayala. So thank you for being here. I guess first, just want, of course, wanted to say thank you for running, and just how are you feeling right now? How's it? How's life post campaign?
Hi. Thanks so much for the opportunity. It's pretty good. I still have a lot of projects going on, so still busy. Still working on the issues I set forward during the campaign. So, in that regard, still chugging along. And then I have some art shows and work coming up. So, still very busy.
Yeah. So let's skip around a couple of my questions. With that. So what's next for Barbara Ayala? What do you have any plans for staying engaged, or do you have any new projects you want to talk about?
Yeah, I definitely want to stay engaged, and I think the campaign helped me, meet even more people and definitely get more in the know. Um, there's so many ins and outs in Waltham right now. It definitely helped me, find people that are passionate about the same things and ready to work and are already working. So I'm looking forward to using my time to get more involved in. So I'm right now hoping to, you know, do like a focused volunteer time for myself each week. So revolving with Healthy Waltham, with Fields, with the Foods Not Bombs, with our land trust. So that's my personal goal, is to kind of do a revolving volunteer set for all the important community organizations that I've connected through the campaign.
That's wonderful. I mean, that's really how I started getting more involved in the community. It sounds like you're going to be a little more organized about it, but yeah, I just started volunteering my time at all the different organizations that I thought were worthwhile, and yeah, I'm starting to learn the characters, all of the people that are involved, all of the issues that are there, all the resources for the issues, and also where are the resources limited and where are the shortfalls, and then kind of me, and then eventually my decision to start inserting. Solutions to those pitfalls was definitely a good part of my journey to being involved in Waltham, and also how we started doing this.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, yeah. I like um definitely also supporting this channel. It's definitely helped me leading up to it, and just information is kind of the access point to being involved. So it definitely I know I rely on the insights from this channel, and a lot of people in Waltham do.
it's wonderful. I always like hearing that. You said a couple art shows. Do you want to plug that if you're interested?
Oh, this weekend is an exciting one. My art is going to be in an exhibition for a festival in Boston. It's called Raising Voices, and it's about protest. So I'm very excited about that. And then locally in Waltham at the end of September, the last weekend in September, I'm going to have a flower arrangement in the House in Bloom for the Gore place. I love the Gore
Mhm.
place, so I'm very excited for that as well.
That's awesome. Looking forward to it. Okay, so obviously you were an underdog in a crowded race full of conservative voices, also in a very conservative ward. I think, I like to say that it's Ward 3 is the most conservative based on a couple of election points over the years. Can you talk about your decision deciding to run outspokenly to the left, despite that not being what maybe most of, at least the people voting, according to data, kind of want to hear? Can you talk about that decision?
Yeah, I was just really inspired by our community and um people who I had connected with in the ward and also throughout Waltham. And I saw a population there that is very motivated and frustrated and energetic and all of the above. And I wanted to make sure that population was represented, and we have a place in Waltham because as a lot of states and a lot of countries right now are feeling pushback from more conservative views and some dangerous views. It's important to make sure we still have a place and we're safe, we're happy, and it just, as times change, and wanted to reflect the diversity of our ward and our community and Waltham in general. And it's important to make sure all our voices are heard, as we are in a democracy.
Absolutely, that's great. And you definitely could have made the decision to tone down or even self-censor yourself to acquire a couple more votes. But I'm very happy you ran authentically as yourself. And yeah, like you said, there is a community of progressive-minded folks in Ward 3 in North Waltham. And so I definitely wanted to say people that vote, that are most likely to vote, because there is a community for folks like that. But maybe they're just not feeling as engaged. And definitely the possibility exists for that contingent of folks to come together as a cohort, a voting block. And hopefully that comes together in 2 years or in the future.
Yeah, definitely.
So what were some of the challenges that were unexpected for you on the campaign trail? And also, what were some of your favorite parts that were unexpected?
A lot of personal challenges that were unexpected. I started off the race with a new chronic condition that happened suddenly. I went to the hospital, and then now it has changed my whole life, my whole diet, my lifestyle. So that was an interesting way to start off the campaign, and definitely limited me physically and sometimes and mentally. And then also throughout the campaign, I lost someone, and just a lot of personal challenges that I definitely felt. But despite that, so we were talking about, how it is a more conservative ward historically. I'll be honest, I was worried. I didn't know what to expect on the doors. And as a femme presenting person, and if you looked me up, queer, and I don't think necessarily other people knew, but also Jewish, just lots of intersecting factors that I wasn't sure what to expect on the doors, and I was a little worried. But that was probably the best part of the campaign, was that I really didn't have a bad door, and that was really uplifting, and definitely showed that there is a place and a great community in Waltham, and there are the issues that connect us, but also that was very, very uplifting to me to see great conversations and reception on the doors from, probably the worst door I had was just saying, I just got home, I don't have time. So that is that's really impressive. And then just to see those issues hitting home with some people. My in where I live, Ward 3-2, I actually then got more votes. So it definitely also showed that we were connecting on the issues there. So that was great to see. I think a lot of it came down to environmentalism, definitely in Ward 3, that really hit home because we have a lot to protect here. So yeah, I think those were some lows and some highlights.
Definitely, yeah. And, we keep talking about, oh, it's so conservative, it's such a conservative place. But yeah, I think I don't want people to be deterred from knocking on doors in Ward 3, because most of the time, you're talking to a person. It's easy when you're online and it's so heated a discussion. When you're talking to a person face to face, it very rarely goes badly. Some people don't want to talk and they make that clear, and then you go and then you go talk to the next person. But most of the time you can find some common ground. And I think most people want to find common ground. Then maybe they'll decide not to vote for you or not, but the conversation is there. The introduction of ideas is there. The building of relationships is there. So I think very important. So definitely don't want to deter people from wanting to canvass in Ward 3. Okay. So last question. What advice would you give to someone who's thinking about running for office the next cycle 2 years from now?
I think hopefully, well, personally, I think there needs to be more information out there about how to run, and I'm hoping to put together, some very detailed manual, blog, whatever. But I think definitely connect with people in here in Waltham and in general. Connecting with the people who share your passions is important, for your campaign and also mentally, because things can get nasty. And luckily for me, it didn't, but I see already some of that in other races in Waltham, and you need a support system, but you also need to stand up for, I also, wanted my campaign to be a certain way, and I think you need to stand up for yourself for why you're going into this. There are some concessions you can make based on the best way to get votes, but also I wanted to run a sustainable campaign, so I really stuck to that. And but yeah, definitely making sure you have a support system and sticking to your principles, why you wanted to run in the first place, and then just making sure you have all your ducks in a row. There's lots of ins and outs with setting up finances and all that nitty-gritty stuff that hopefully there will be a foundation for you to, look up how to do that. But definitely getting all that set in the beginning so you don't have to worry about that down the line.
Yeah, that's definitely a big piece of advice for me as well. Just a little detail-oriented thing is definitely get way ahead of the financial record stuff. Just get way ahead of that. Do not wait until the last second like I did, and then 6 hours of just like plugging away at spreadsheets. Please take that very seriously. So thank you very much, Ayala. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for running. Thanks for running a great campaign. Hope you stay involved. Hope we'll see more of you soon. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Okay. Very excited to see what happens in November. I'm very concerned that we could be, from a leftist progressive stance, we could be in a worse spot than we were 2 years ago. Actually, a couple more anecdotes about projection and guessing here. I don't have the by wards up here, but based on the preliminary data, Eamon in Ward 9 looking great because Paz did really well in Ward 9. He won the ward itself. And Eamon, with the endorsement of Jonathan Paz, people in Ward 9 associating Eamon with Jonathan Paz, associating Robert Logan with the mayor. I think it shows that he will do very well in Ward 9. So I'm very happy about that. On the flip side, it shows that Lizzie Gellis is probably not going to do as well. Unfortunately, I like Lizzie Gellis a lot. Worked on her campaign the first time, but Jonathan got killed in Ward 1 by a lot, and so the fact that Lizzie is part of the slate, which I never really understood because Lizzie is a lot more conservative than most of the other slate members. But they're going to associate Lizzie with Paz. And so based on that alone, we can guess that Lizzie's not going to do as well. But something that made me think maybe she does have a shot, and now we're going to segue into something else, is how long ago was this? I can tell you exactly. Last month, Anthony Lafauci, the current Ward 1 city councilor, posted online, which is something that he doesn't usually do, make his opinions known about things. in defense of a couple of things he did on the council that Lizzie is apparently lying about. And so I'm going to actually just share my screen and you can see this, although if you are chronically online, you probably already have seen this. So he talks about, oh, I'm running for Ward 1, blah, 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 blah. Two things that he takes issues with is the Pride Flag resolution and the residential tax exemption. I'm going to talk a little bit about the Pride Flag resolution, and then Tom is going to talk about the residential tax exemption. So we talked about this on our show, but every year since 2019, I think, the Waltham City Council has put together a Pride resolution, first sponsored by Christine Mackin. And every year they do the resolution, and most years everyone signs on. Not everyone. Some people don't even vote yes. Some people vote present, as Kathleen McMiniman did the first time, which is mind blowing. But so this year it happened again. Colleen was nice enough to submit that resolution, and I think 3 councilors didn't sign on to it, or 3 or 4, but notably Anthony did. And so Lizzie's going around in his words saying that he didn't support it, and basically I'm just going to read his words now. The Pride Flag resolution was submitted to the city clerk's office on Thursday, May 18th, and received in the mail by all councilors that evening. At the time it was received, it was signed on by the makers of the resolution, which were only 3, and went on to be many more. This happens when councilors collaborate with others to create a resolution. It was presented officially, blah, 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 blah. The maker of the resolution spoke on the resolution, and then invited anyone else to sign on. The only reason to sign on is if someone would like to speak further on the matter. There was a move to suspend Rule 39 in the matter without committee reference. It was approved unanimously. I'm going to repeat that. The only reason to sign on is if someone would like to speak further on the matter. He's saying that the only reason to sign on to a resolution is to speak on the matter. And then he goes on to say, my opponent feels by not signing the resolution and speaking was against 2 subsequent votes, which I voted approval on. Clearly an example of not understanding the rules of the council nor the procedure. A couple of things. First, there were voice votes. We don't actually know who voted for yes or voted no, because it was a voice vote. It was not a roll call, which is unfortunate, and I wish Colleen had called for a roll call. Would have cleared a lot of this up. But what I take issue with is this here, is the only reason to sign on is if someone would like to speak further on the matter. That's absolutely not true. That's just not true. It's just not true. These kinds of resolutions are, just like feel-good resolutions. They don't have to do anything. And time again, councilors will tell other councilors, and they'll tell the public too, that feel-good resolutions are better if it's a unanimous vote, if everyone signs on. That is just how things have operated in the city council for a very long time. Happens almost every single city council is people will sign onto a resolution just showing support. They don't speak on it. Not everyone does. That's just outrageous to say that the only reason to do that is to do that. And so I started thinking, like, okay, maybe Anthony can say, like, oh, I don't do that. I don't sign on if I have nothing to say on the matter. Anyone else can. So I did some digging, and I found 2 in the most recent history. I wasn't very thorough. I found 2 resolutions where Anthony signed on, didn't speak on them at all. And so and then I thought to myself, I was like, oh, well, maybe he can say, his opinions have changed, because the last one was like 2 years ago. I was like, maybe I'm just trying to think of all the outs that he would say. And then funny enough, I was already planning on talking about this. Funny enough, at this very next city council meeting, there was a 9/11 resolution. And guess who signed on? Everyone. Guess who didn't speak on it? Not many people, and most notably, Anthony. Which is just hilarious. It's just kind of the very first opportunity that he had between posting that and showing that he meant what he said. He just folded. He immediately signed on to a resolution and didn't speak on it. And maybe he'll say, "Oh well, what I meant was after the resolution is made, I meant it to sign on means to speak further. Like maybe if you're not the original signer on, and you someone asks, does anyone else want to sign on? And then you sign on, maybe that's what he meant. The very next resolution was someone honoring someone on the city council, a vet and longtime Waltham resident. He didn't sign on to it initially. And then they asked, does anyone else want to sign on? Guess who signed on? Anthony Lafauci. And guess who didn't say anything? Anthony Lafauci. And so it's just mind blowing. And so for him to say, clearly an example of not understanding the rules of the council or procedure, that's just a low blow. That's just him just trying. He could have said, I support LGBT rights, and I think that Colleen and Paz and the slate, he could have just used like jargon, are weaponizing resolutions, and here's a few examples of that. He could have said that, and it could be argued that it was true. He could have just been honest, but he decided to say that the only reason to sign on is if someone would like to speak further on the matter, and that's not true. You just can't say that, and so that's really disappointing to see. And it honestly made me think, oh man, maybe Lizzie has a shot if like Anthony's like coming out on the defensive, but unfortunately the data doesn't really suggest that. I'm hoping I'm wrong. And then also he talks about the residential tax exemption, which Tom actually understands better than I do, so I'll let Tom speak on it.
Yeah, so if you want to stop sharing, I'm not going to read what Lafauci wrote because it's not informative at all. But basically what happened is apparently Lizzie Jealous is on the campaign trail saying, hey, Anthony Lafauci voted against the residential tax exemption. Lafauci tried to argue, no, I did not vote against the residential tax exemption, which is false. He did vote against the residential tax exemption. We could probably post the vote right here. It's on record. Everyone voted for the residential tax exemption except for Lafauci and LaCava, the Ward 1 and the Ward 5 councilors. But in his paragraphs that he wrote in this post, he claimed that he didn't vote against the residential tax exemption. And that is because through his explanation, it's very clear that he does not know what the residential tax exemption is, which I don't fully hold against him. I fully believe that the majority of city councilors don't know what it is. But regardless, to say it with such authority to try to defend yourself when you could have just, done a bit of Googling, talked to the tax assessor is a little bit embarrassing. But regardless, I think it's good to go over it because it's good to know how our residential tax policy works in Waltham. When it comes to residential taxes in Waltham, there are exactly two numbers that you need to know. The first thing you need to know is the residential factor, which in Waltham is a value of 0.6. And the second thing you need to know is the residential tax exemption, which Waltham has set to the max amount, which is 35%. Now, these two things do two different things. The residential factor, what that does is that allocates how much of Waltham's taxes is paid for by commercial and industrial properties, which is called CIP taxes, and then how much of Waltham's taxes are paid for by residents and property owners, residents, which is called residential taxes. So what the residential factor does is that it determines how much the tax burden of residents can be reduced and pushed on to commercial and industrial properties. And in Waltham, we do it to the lowest possible number, which is 0.6. And we can see that in these numbers where before and after this residential factor tax shift, originally residents in Waltham are paying 65% of Waltham's taxes, but then after this lowest residential factor is applied, then Waltham is only paying for 40% Waltham residents are only paying for 40% of the city's taxes, and more of the taxes are taken up by the commercial and industrial properties. And you can see the math is basically 65% times 0.6 equals 39%. Simple math. There are a lot of numbers on this document, which is produced by the assessors. I don't know why the assessors in Waltham present the data this way. It is very unintuitive and hard to understand. But these are the numbers you need to look at. Basically, for the residential factor, Waltham residents are initially pay 65% of the city's taxes. Then taxes are reallocated to where the residents only pay 39%, and then commercial and industrial properties pick up the remaining tax burden. And that is due to the residential factor. This is what Lafauci was claiming that the residential tax exemption was. And he was like, oh no, I was in favor of this because I was voting for this, which is incorrect. This has nothing to do with the residential tax exemption. So the residential factor, it reallocates the tax burden from residents to commercial and industrial properties. The second number you have to know is the residential tax exemption, which Lafauci and LaCava voted against. And what this does is it's basically a progressive tax system that progressive in the sense that like taxes are progressive, where it reallocates how much has to be paid based on your level of wealth, or in this specific case, the amount of wealth that you have in your home. So what that means is that lower value residential properties pay less if they are owner occupied, and then higher value residential properties, as well as any residents which aren't owner occupied, such as apartment buildings, pay a higher rate. And the way this works is that they take 35% of the average value of a house. And you can see this number down here. The average house in Waltham is worth $686,000. 35% of that is $260,000. So if you own your home in Waltham, you have a residential tax exemption of $260K. What this means is that the first $260K value of your house is basically free. You pay no taxes on it. But the way it balances out is that you can see that Waltham then raises the residential tax rate. So before this exemption is applied, the tax rate in Waltham for residents is $7.54 for every $1,000 that your home is worth. After they apply this residential tax exemption, the tax rate increases to $10.32. And this is directly proportional. You can see that the total valuation of exempted property of residential property, once this residential exemption is applied, decreases from 11 billion to 8 billion. And then at the same time, the tax rate increases from 7.5 to 10.3. And this math directly checks out. It's the exact same ratio, 1.369, 1.369. So the residential tax exemption does not reallocate the tax burden from residents to businesses. It reallocates the tax burden within the residential bracket between different residential owners. So that way people who own lower valued homes pay less, and people who own high value homes or places that aren't owner occupied pay more. And that's sort of how the residential tax exemption works. It just reallocates which residents pay more and which residents pay less.
I wish you taught me math, because that actually makes total sense. And I've been in many meetings with the residential tax exemption. I feel like I have an understanding of it, but that was very clear and way more easy to explain than what other people have tried, including the assessors.
Yeah, that's a good breakdown. Thank you, Tom.
Yeah, Jamie,
Yeah, of course.
Jamie understands it pretty well too, way better than I do.
Oh yeah, I've tried to elaborate on it before. That was a good breakdown, because honestly, like it's like multi-layered, and it is like there's the transfer from industrial and whatever, and then also the exemption for the owner occupied kind of covers up a lot of the smaller landlords for those purposes, from increasing property taxes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the city assessors don't make it easy for most people to understand. There are a lot of numbers on that sheet. They aren't presented in a very logical way. But brass tacks, those are the two numbers that matter, and those are how the numbers affect how much taxes different residents have to pay and different businesses have to pay. The residential factor reallocates the tax burden from residents to businesses, and then the residential tax exemption reallocates the tax burden within different residential properties based on how much they're worth and whether they're owner occupied.
Yeah, so they were basically pushing for a more flat tax.
Yeah, they don't want high value properties to pay more, and also, yeah, basically that, yeah.
And so for Anthony Lafauci to say it means that 35% of the residential tax burden is absorbed by commercial properties is just strictly false. That sounds strictly false.
It is strictly false. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's not how it works. 35% has nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
And also when he says, I didn't vote against the residential tax exemption, also
Yeah.
very false.
Even if our analysis
and the CAVA voted against it. Yeah.
That's just in the minutes.
Yeah. Like,
and so it's just
pretty much every single thing that, oh, sorry.
Yeah. No, yeah, I think you're about to say what I'm about to say, but
I was just going to say pretty much every single thing Lafauci said in that post was wrong, so it's not worth reading out.
Yeah, 100%. Just I think pretty much everything in this post, which was in defense of himself, is incorrect. And what's funny about politics is that unless you follow this show, you have no idea that what Anthony just said is completely incorrect, unless you know a lot about residential tax exemption and a lot about the history of pride resolutions and also Robert's rules and all of these things. Unless you know all of those things, or unless you watch this show. And you can see it in the comments. You can see it in how people talk. It's just like Anthony says, like, "Oh well, these things," and everyone that likes Anthony is like, "Wow, Anthony, that was really smart of you to say." Like,
Wow,
you kicked ass
dunked on them.
in that post. It was like, you need to say stuff. It doesn't even have to be true. You need to say stuff, and that pushes your agenda. Crazy to me.
Crazy how that works.
Yeah. Okay. And so I actually just talked a lot about it, but the first city council meeting of the year or the season just happened. It was only 45 minutes long. There wasn't too much going on. There was the resolution about 9/11. There was a resolution commemorating a citizen whose name I should remember. And then the only public hearing was about Eversource. I think Jamie wants to chat a little bit about Eversource as well. Not necessarily about that, but please, Jamie.
Oh, yeah, the Eversource one for this meeting was about getting better power service to to Deep Ellum. That building apparently has been having issues with air conditioning not functioning, so they'll be getting improved service there. So taking a step back, so the related to Eversource, there have been power surges in Waltham that the state recently came out saying that they were not going to investigate because it was allegedly rats that were the root cause. And we did a write-up of the overall timeline of this, and I personally find it a little hard to believe that it was something as simple as just rats, and especially considering this is our privatized like electric grid, and the city and state saying that they're not going to investigate basically what looks like a lack of like poor maintenance leading to power surges and then a house fire. So that's not surprising at this point, but I would like to be able to expect more from our government when it comes to like delivering services. And there's examples of other municipalities that have their own power and gas delivery companies, and just like having to have the city council in the loop every time a road needs to get opened and things like that just seems like it makes everything take a lot more work, and it seems like it makes it a lot harder to coordinate things. And then on top of that, there seems like a lack of maintenance. So I don't think I have anything more to add than that, but I think we can play the clip from our correspondent showing the overall timeline of events.
On June 19th, 2023, Waltham experienced a power surge. This was the second one in a year. The first one happened in October 15th, 2022. Of note, in June, during that power surge, a house went up in flames after there was an electrical surge, and it fried the outlets and it fried their devices. And the homeowners were put up in a hotel after being given a $100 gift card from Eversource. After the second power surge in June, Councilors Paz, Darcy, and Bradley-MacArthur organized a town hall to discuss this issue. The town hall was on June 27th. Residents who were affected by the power surges were invited to come and share their stories, which they did. They told the counselors that Eversource offered meetings for them to come and fill out claim forms to get money towards their devices or household items which were destroyed. The fine print in these forms that people were signing stated that Eversource will take no liability for the surge and the destroyed items. And furthermore, residents were offered money towards these destroyed appliances at a depreciated value. So if your refrigerator was 7 years old at the time the power surge ran through and destroyed it, they would offer you the cost of Eversource is offering people the money towards a 7-year-old refrigerator instead of just buying a new one. At the town hall, at this June town hall, counselors Jonathan Paz and Colleen Bradley-MacArthur were in attendance, and they heard these stories. After the town hall, they came together, sent a formal request to the State Department of Public Utilities recommending that they investigate Eversource. In Massachusetts, the State Department of Public Utilities, as it sounds like, it's a state department that regulates Eversource, which is a private company that operates within Massachusetts. So the two counselors, Paz and Bradley-MacArthur, sent a formal request to the DPU recommending that they formally investigate Eversource regarding their negligence and less than savory legal practices as it related to getting these items back from people who had their homes destroyed and items destroyed. On August 30th, which was last week, the counselors received an email forwarded from Mayor McCarthy. The email was sent from the State Department of Public Utilities. This letter explained that the DPU met with Eversource on June 21st about the issues in Waltham. It went on to state that Eversource conducted a root cause analysis of the malfunctions in Waltham and remedied the problem internally. Eversource actually blamed the surges on a rodent infestation inside an electrical conduit, causing power breakers to fail. The State Department, the DPU, was satisfied with Eversource's analysis and proposed fixes and declined to launch a formal investigation. They instead issued a strong warning to Eversource. In lieu of formal investigation, DPU claimed that it will continue to monitor Eversource's actions to remediate the cause. That's a direct quote. DPU also stated that it will attend meetings hosted by the state fire marshal's office to further discuss this issue. It is unclear whether these meetings with the fire marshal is part of a standard operating procedure when events like this happen, or if it's something they're going out of their way to do. So that is the update and the latest news regarding the power surges in Waltham.
And so thank you to Kara for making that and inserting that here. And then at the most recent meeting with Eversource, we saw a little bit about this. I was curious if they were going to do it, and Jonathan Paz and Colleen both questioned the Eversource representative about, is this like part of a bigger plan to do something like that? Is it connected to the outages? Is there any connection there at all? And of course, the Eversource representative doing their job said, I don't know. It's not their job to know that. So Jonathan Paz and Colleen still sticking to their guns, still keeping true to that, trying to investigate Eversource in Waltham more. And finally, I guess that's it for the meeting. It was a very short meeting. We're going to do committees next week. We'll be interested to see if the tenants' rights ordinance comes up again in an ordinance and rules. I'm not really sure. I'm not feeling like anything else is super exciting, but we will be back to talk about that. Finally, we did want to give an update about the MWRA. I'm going to shoot this back to Tom because he's about to educate me as well as you about this.
Yeah, so this is following up on a conversation that happened over the summer. We've just been away for a way, so we didn't have a chance to report on it. It's pretty quick, but basically along Waverly Oaks Road, the Massachusetts Water Resource Authority, MWRA, will be removing about 20 trees along Waverly Oaks Road that have grown over an existing water pipe. So that way they can do maintenance on the pipe because the pipe, is older than the trees. And then they will come back after that work and replace it by planting 60, I think 60 trees along Waverly Oaks Road, in addition to an unidentified number of trees across the rest of Waltham as well. So basically taking away trees, repairing a pipe that supplies water, and then planting more trees in Waltham. In general, I consider it to be a very well thought plan. It's been in the works for a while. But just so folks know why this is necessary, basically looking at this, we have this water pipe right here, sort of like goes along the railroad tracks, parallel. And this is called the WASM 3 pipe, the Weston Aqueduct Supply Main 3, so called because the pipe starts in Weston. And then there are 4 of them. Numbers 1, 2, and 4 go through Newton to the Boston and Cambridge area. And then number 3, WASM 3, it goes from Weston through Waltham and it ends up, I think, in Medford. And this is the only pipe that supplies water to roughly 250,000 people, many of them who live in Waltham. So this is a very important pipe. It's not really negotiable. There aren't other options for them to supply water with. So it's really important that they do maintenance. And in the meantime, they are doing redundancies, of course, because the name of infrastructure is that you need redundancy. And currently there is no redundancy, which is a major problem. So you can see currently they're doing rehabilitation along this pipeline. And then the Section 101 improvements, which refers to the current MWRA project that's happening along Lexington Street, up and down Lexington Street, where they're installing new water pipes. The purpose for that is to provide redundancy so that way Waltham still has a source of water as they continue to do work along the pipe that goes up and down Waverly Oaks Road. And from a broader perspective, this is going into like a larger, more regional thing, because pretty much everything east of I-95 doesn't have a lot of redundancy. So there's a huge project going on in that. And this is just one of the many steps in that process. You can see it's called out right here, where it's the WASM3 rehab. It's one part of a very complex process that's hoping to add more redundancy and resiliency to the entire water supply network of the Boston area. But in our little corner of the Boston area, specifically in Waltham, it is vital. It is the sole source of water for 250,000 families, and it is very important for it to be maintained. And this is a pipe that's over 100 years old. It is older than the trees that are being removed because the pipe was laid and then the trees were planted on top of it, or not even planted, they just grew on top of it. So it's, well, of course, we all love trees. It is unavoidable and very necessary for just people being able to exist.
Okay, thank you, Tom, for that. Thank you for teaching me more about that project because I did not know that either. Okay, and so I think that'll do it for the first episode back. Thank you to Ayala and Colleen for coming on. Thank you for Jamie and Tom for giving your input about all this stuff. I'm excited about future things in Waltham. Excited to rebuild our YouTube channel. We just got a new Instagram as well. You can follow us on Facebook. I don't know if we're whatever Twitter's called. I think we're going to continue doing that as well. You can find us on all of that. Please let us know if you want to be interested in getting involved at all. We're always looking for people to come on our debrief, always looking for people to go to meetings and give us notes on it, always looking for people to help edit our videos, always looking for people to help, do cultural stuff. Very interested in talking to Waltham people, very interested in getting information out there in a city where there is literally a monopoly on this kind of stuff. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Jamie and Tom, and I will see you all next time. Thank you.
Thank you.